Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Universalist Church Online, in which love is the spirit. We're glad you're here, whether you're joining us from West Hartford, Connecticut, or anywhere in the world. I'm Gretchen, one of your co-moderators here on the Universalist Church Board. If you're attending worship through our YouTube live stream, we invite you to connect with us more deeply. Visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more. There you can use the contact page to get onto our mailing list or let us know how you'd like to get involved. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church no matter where you live. Online worship can be wonderful, and technology does sometimes fail us. If that should happen, we appreciate your graciousness. Today's order of service will appear in the Zoom chat box and the YouTube description. Our Zoom fellowship time will begin shortly after worship ends. If you're attending through Zoom today, please stay online to connect with one another. Even if you need to step away for a short break, please come back and join us. If you're part of our Zoom community but watching on YouTube, you can always jump onto Zoom for fellowship after the service ends. Creating and strengthening our connections with one another is so important while we wait for the pandemic to end. We're almost there. These online fellowship times help us to do that. Now, please take a moment to turn off your email and other apps, put the keyboard away, and settle in for worship.
If you happen to have your home chalice, please light it with me. And now, after lighting our chalice, and it's acting up this morning. What else is new? It's in alignment with the theme for today. And now, join in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant with me. It's in the description and in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maud Elliott, and I will be reading an adaptation of Henry's Freedom Box by Ellen Levine, based on a true story from the Underground Railroad. Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their own birthdays. Henry and his siblings worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family. But Henry's mother knew things could change. As Henry sat on his mother's lap, looking out at the large row of trees across from the field, from the porch, his mom said, "Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children are torn from their families." One morning, the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master lay in bed very ill. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master would set him free. But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie." Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie. Later that day, Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. "Do not tear that tobacco leaf," the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked Henry with a stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. One day, Henry met Nancy in town while she was shopping for her mistress. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon, they had a little baby, and then another, and then another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They were able to live together even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. "I'm afraid he will sell our children, Henry," she said. Henry sat very still. Henry was working in the factory when his friend James came in. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No!" cried Henry. He couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. The boss poked Henry. Henry twisted the tobacco leaves as his heart twisted in his chest. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. Henry watched his children and his wife disappear down the road. Many weeks passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of one of the trees in the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. but how? As Henry lifted a crate, he knew the answer. Henry asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man in town who thought slavery was wrong. They met the next morning at an empty warehouse. "I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves," said Henry. So Henry got into the crate, and Dr. Smith wrote the address of his friend in Philadelphia. Henry was off for an unexpected adventure. If you wish to know how this story ends, you can go to your library or come to ours here at the church, and you can check out this book. And again, it's Henry's Freedom Box. So now, please join in singing our doxology.
We are grateful for all the ways in which you support this congregation and one another. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us to serve the members, friends, and wider community of our congregation. So as part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that are in harmony with our values, who do work in the world that brings us ever closer to creating the beloved community. Our offering today will be shared with Hartford Bags of Love. Bags of Love was created by Tiernan Cabot when he was 9 years old as a way to provide basic daily essentials to people experiencing homelessness. They give away things from soap to socks to sleeping bags. And they are raising funds to build free little pantries around Hartford County so that anyone can find food right when they need it. You can find them online at hartfordbagsoflove.org. Please use the links in the chat or the description and on our website to make your donation to our shared offering. Thank you.
Has tried us, up inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Up inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I have a number of things to share with you on behalf of the congregation this morning. Tracy W. has returned to the hospital again, and the medical team is figuring out how best to fine-tune her treatments so that her body can work well while living with cancer. They've made a couple of important discoveries, and those treatments are underway, so we expect that things will be getting better for Tracy very soon. Cards continue to be the best way to support her and Beth B. Visits and phone calls are a little bit too taxing right now. I'm sure they'll let us know as soon as that changes. Judy B. went into the hospital this past week and will be in the hospital and then in rehab for a little while longer afterward. They've treated the reason for her stay, but she's going to remain for observation and care until she regains her strength. Her daughter, Jennifer, is home recovering from Achilles tendon surgery as well. The entire family could certainly use your prayers and your thoughts. Jack W. will have surgery on June 25th. So, for all of these folks, your prayers and best wishes for healing and excellent medical care are much appreciated. But for now, cards are probably your best way to stay in contact and share that support. In joyful news, Peggy G. became a grandmother. Sierra Marie was born to her son and daughter-in-law on June 9th. Please join me in a time of prayer. Spirit of life and of love, of many names, many understandings, many imaginations, we give thanks. We give thanks for the fact that we are, that we exist and experience and wonder, and knowing too that in this life we hurt and heal, we are born and we die. We still give thanks for each moment, as well as for the skill and care of those who help us when we need it. We give thanks, too, for the powers of ingenuity, creativity, and wisdom. The ability to create vaccines and medical treatments, as well as the ability to use them well. The ability to think of ways to leave impossible situations. The cleverness and the courage to move on. May our capacity for wisdom help us to make good choices with all of our ingeniousness, our invention, our desire, and our longing for better, too. May our wisdom lead us to better health, not just for individuals, but for all of our nation. And not just for our nation, but for all people. And not just for people, for humans, but for the whole of the earth. Let us turn our capacity for creating problems, for harm, into the capacity for solving problems, and for healing, for justice. Whether these are the problems of our bodies or our ecologies, our intolerances of difference, our lack of imagination and vision. At our best, we can reimagine the world in powerful, wonderful, just and loving ways. So may we find the strength to do so together, inspired by the goodness of life and love. Please join me in a time of stillness. May we use our capacity for inventiveness and wisdom to help us make good choices for all people. May our wisdom lead us to better for individuals, but not just for each individual human, but for all of them, and not just for the humans, but for our world as well, so that we may all thrive. May it be so. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The first reading today is from the Juneteenth.com homepage. Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. From its Galveston, Texas origin in 1865, the observance of June 19th as the African American Emancipation Day has spread across the United States and beyond. Today, Juneteenth commemorates African American freedom and emphasizes education and achievement. It is a day, a week, and in some cases, a month, marked with celebrations, guest speakers, picnics, and family gatherings. It is a time for reflection and rejoicing. It is a time for assessment, self-improvement, and for planning the future. Its growing popularity signifies a level of maturity and dignity in America long overdue. In cities across the country, people of all races, nationalities, and religions are joining hands to truthfully acknowledge a period in our history that shaped and continues to influence our society today. Sensitized to the conditions and experiences of others, only then can we make significant and lasting improvements in our society. In Galveston, this separation began with General Order Number 3 being read to the people. That order began most significantly with the people of Texas. Oops, I lost my place. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired laborer. Here are the celebrations that followed the reading of the proclamation by General Gordon Granger began a tradition that has lasted for 156, I believe, as of this year, years, and today is hosted in cities across America and beyond. Here are a few quotes from people regarding the meaning of this celebration. Juneteenth is a day of reflection, a day of renewal, a pride-filled day. It is a moment in time taken to appreciate the African American experience. It is inclusive of all races, ethnicities, and nationalities, as nothing is more comforting than the hand of a friend. Juneteenth serves symbolically and in reality as a reference point from which to measure and appreciate the progress and contributions made by African Americans to this society. Juneteenth is a day on which honor and respect is paid for the sufferings of slavery. It is a day on which we acknowledge the evils of slavery and its aftermath. On Juneteenth, we talk about our history and realize, because of it, there will forever be a bond between us. On Juneteenth, we think about that moment in time when the enslaved in Galveston, Texas, received word of their freedom. We imagine the depth of their emotions, their jubilant dance, and their fear of the unknown. On Juneteenth, we come together, young and old, to listen, to learn, and to refresh the drive to achieve. It is a day where we take one step closer together to better utilize the energy wasted on racism. Juneteenth is a day that we pray for peace and liberty for all. Our second reading is from Be Messy, a journal to aid in embracing the messiness by Alethea Schmidt and Heather Westbrook. In each of our lives, messiness, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, is often viewed as the enemy. Messiness can be seen as something to overcome, eliminate, or avoid. In our day and age, so many of us are taught to present ourselves as perfect. We are encouraged to gloss over problems and struggle and to draw attention only to the good. As messiness shows up, or doesn't go away, we find ourselves apologizing, hiding, or being ashamed of our failures and of ourselves. However, whether we like it or not, messiness is a part of life, and it is a part of us. Our houses, our cars, plan, hair, and hearts are so rarely without some sort of disorganization, displacement, discomfort, disruption, or chaos. Rarely can, or even should, we steer clear of the mess. Instead, the invitation is to view and to experience the mess, to work with and reflect upon it. What if we begin to look at messiness in a new way? What if we allow room in our lives and space in our hearts for the mess? What if we even befriend it? What if, instead of instantly trying to fix and correct it, we met our messiness with gentleness and compassion? What a difference that would make.
I don't know about you, but I can say after last Sunday's service, I was set in motion. I left here holding my very ordinary daisy, and I chose this. These flowers called to me. They provoked me into a whirlwind of mind and heart tunnels. I had a vivid picture of all the different flowers that sat on the table back there, attached to the words Vicky Sklar read about each unique flower and their contributions to the magnificence of the bouquets that rested on our table. Then suddenly, I was struck with how all those flowers were related to my chosen topic for today, being messy. If you've ever been in a meadow at the beginning of spring, and I bet you have noticed birds flying to and fro, insects seemingly everywhere, including circling your head annoyingly, and flowers, all varieties waving in the breeze. Any meadow you come upon isn't like the finely manicured gardens one sees at Elizabeth Park, or in the front yards of houses as you drive down Mountain Road, or down Fern Street to Fern Ridge Park. The meadow is messy. It's filled not only with birds, insects, and wild flowers, but also lengthy waving grasses and muddy patches, swampy patches even, with more encircling insects. Thus, I arrive before you today like those meadows, only as a human mess instead. And you know what? I struggle with my messiness each and every day. I struggle with being a white, privileged, lesbian, feminist, Unitarian, Universalist, Catholic, mystical being in a world that would prefer me to be an agreeable, soft, accommodating, educated, cisgender elder woman. A woman who wasn't so vulnerable, so willing to question, so determined to work toward justice, especially when it means challenging the status quo. And note, none of these adjectives used here are being used pejoratively. But even in making such a statement about myself, it's messy. I want to be perfectly clear here. My messiness and your messiness are part and parcel of who we are as humans. However, it is not an excuse for not exploring ways to change or transform the parts of our messiness that we can. In today's time for all ages, I loved the juxtaposition of Henry's desire to experience the happiness of his family with the realities of his being a slave, and his imagination used to help him escape its continued impact on his life. I try to respect the celebratory aspects shared by Joyce about Juneteenth, but I stumble on the foundational ugliness, selfishness, and inhumanity that brought forth the necessity of this type of celebration. I find the messiness of being part of systematic racism in my religious, healthcare, governmental, educational, and therapeutic environments really hard to stomach and hard to hold within me. The tension between my awareness of right relations with all those I see, I touch, I live among each day, alongside my desire for love guiding everything I do, is truly chaotic and totally, absolutely, totally messy. One of the aspects of emerging from this pandemic is going to be accepting some chaos that is embedded in the process of beginning anew. We've shared and spoken from this very pulpit about using our imaginations, our ingenuity, our talents, and our shared experiences to help guide us. However, we must remember that each one of us has had a unique experience during this pandemic. And so it will take time to move through the messiness that was unique to each of us. In preparing for General Assembly, which is in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks actually, our Unitarian Universalist Association has asked us to examine aspects of our part in justice seeking and justice making, while simultaneously publishing information and asking us to support change and encourage resistance. Once again, it's messy, and I don't know how to achieve being change and resistance at the same time. It's just a tough call, but I keep reminding myself, and I hope you do too, that it is possible to live both and, rather than either or. I find it difficult to read books like Caste, How to Be Less Stupid About Race, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I have to read books like these really slowly because I can feel my rage rise as my heart responds to the inhumanity, the history, the disrespect, and the ignorance that has been a part of our living historical record regarding our siblings of color throughout this entire world. My rage reminds me often of a verse from one of my favorite women musicians, Margie Adam. The verse reads, "I've got a fury deep inside my very soul, and it's going to eat me up or let me go. It's got to be one or the other. This I know. I've got a fury, and I'm going to let it show." I share this rising rage with you today because I want you to know, I know. I deeply know how truly messy life is. And yet, I also know, and this I feel is the crux of real, vibrant living, that from living with messiness, I learn to be more vulnerable, to be more open, to be more willing to see that arc of justice bend but not break, to witness my aliveness, my humanness, while also dying to so much of the unnecessary perfections which pepper our days. Living with messiness allows me to make mistakes, to ask for forgiveness, to look into the eyes of another human and see what we can mean to one another. Living with messiness means I don't have answers to those important questions of why am I here? What am I here to do? or B. But I do not know what I don't know without you. And I do know that I am part of a community that is willing to be in the mess with me and search together for these answers, to learn how to, as our reading noted, begin to look at messiness in a new way, allow room in our lives and space in our hearts for the mess. What if we even befriended the messiness? What if instead of instantly trying to fix and correct it, we met our messiness with gentleness and compassion? What difference might that make? Perhaps living with our messiness, we might learn to sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. We may also learn to live in the tension and the uncomfortable feelings surrounding our own racism, acknowledging our own moments of inhumanity, as well as our moments of magnanimous generosity and recognition of our shared humanness. May we all live with our messiness more honestly and clearly, so that it can provide each one of us with the insight we need in order to live with love guiding us. May it be so.
And sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of a bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silenced tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led Guide us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Let our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Let us speak together our unison benediction. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Rooms. So you need to take time to move from Zoom to from YouTube to Zoom, rather than the opposite, and enjoy one another and your sharing this great Sunday morning. Have a wonderful week ahead.